Well, our first guest on today's Big Blend Radio show, our Champagne Sunday show, is artist, photographer, and filmmaker Deborah Anderson. She's joining us to talk about her powerful documentary, and that's a word that comes to mind, is powerful. It's called Women of the White Buffalo. She spent 2 years working on the documentary, and it shares the stories of the Lakota-Women living on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in South Dakota. And the film has already won all kinds of awards, like Best Feature Documentary at the 24th Red Nation International Film Festival. She won Best Director of a Feature Documentary at the Los Angeles Independent Film Festival, and many more. And right now we're going to talk about the documentary, talk about the issues out on Pine Ridge and what the women are facing, the Lakota women, and their strength and power of how they're standing up to the truth as well, but also about a fundraising campaign that she's doing right now so that this documentary, it's won awards, it's powerful, but it does need to get out on all streaming platforms. And hey, how many of us are living on streaming music and movies and Facebook things? So we want to get this out there to as many people, and I encourage you to go to the website. It is womenofthewhitebuffalo.com. You can also learn more about Deborah at deborah.anderson.com. So welcome, Deborah. How are you doing?
Oh, thank you. I am well. Thank you so much.
We're really glad to have you here on the show, and also just really, really appreciate the work that you've done on Women of the White Buffalo. I know this is your second feature film. I know you've got numerous books out, and you've done so much in photography. And but you know, Women of the White Buffalo, where did that start for you to say, okay, I'm going to go do this documentary?
Well, I have to say I love what you both spoke to about the responsibility of telling one's truth through art. I think my brother was like, are you an activist or are you an artist? And I said, I'm an artist, because through art you can say so much and you can reach so many people. And then as an artist, you put that work out into the world, and really it's up to the people to receive it as they wish to receive it. You know, as an activist, you feel there's a lot of pounding of the pavement and having to scream at people to listen. But through art, I think it really opens awareness to many people that probably wouldn't know about the big issues around the world. So I will, as a segue into sort of why I end up on the Pine Ridge and the Rosebud reservations in South Dakota, was really because I wanted to speak to stories that were bigger than anything I've ever done before, and really push myself into an arena that I know would wake my consciousness up, would really elevate my consciousness and speak to issues that I think really need to be taken a look at, especially with women, as we speak about empowering women and the remembering of the matriarchal societies that we once were, especially the Native understanding of that. So for me to step into this new arena of documenting stories through a film, you know, Women of the White Buffalo, was such a gift for me to expand on the years that it's taken me to understand light and to be able to hold a camera and, you know, understand what it is to be an artist. And then when you're faced with a reality where you're not having people pose, you're not having people show up the way you would like, it's them being in their authentic self. Thank God I'd spent years, you know, perfecting my part so that I could sit there and hold those stories and not be worrying about lighting and worrying about these other issues as one does as an artist, you know, creating the perfect scene. It was what it was, and I basically was able just to sit and hold the space and do the best job I could possibly do to hear the stories, and now put them into an 85-minute piece of film that I hope, I pray, will really move people to waking up.
I think this is brilliant. It's a brilliant film, and I think your sense of Mike, you feel responsible to put that word out in the right way. You can feel it in what you've done in the film. There's a responsibility that somehow landed on your shoulders.
Yeah. I want to say,
and I checked in with him as well. Sorry. Yeah, no, I just want to say I checked in with him as we were doing it. It never was taking stories, farming stories, then going back home and editing, you know, into a piece of film that they never would have a say in. Like I kept going back. I would show them edits just to really gift them their voices in the right way.
Awesome. Because each woman that you were interviewing, and they're all of different ages, and you looked at everything from education to addiction to, you know, trafficking, and just there's so many issues, and showing the history. And what I think is so important about what you've done is that you're talking on the Lakota side, and at the same time, what's happening on this reservation is not just on this reservation. It's happening in Canada. It's happening in different places where women are disappearing, and it's not just there. And I think this is something this is a crisis, and I think it's a global crisis. Nancy at the beginning of the show talked about this is something that reminds us of when we were in Kenya. Women were disappearing too. And it wasn't just Christianity. I want to say that there was all religions got involved in regards to brainwashing or trying to and doing things. So, but this I feel you're standing up for a lot of Indigenous women around the world with this.
It felt like to me it was like, okay, so Pine Ridge and the Rosebud reservations, they have these problems. And then I'm like, it's just a mirror to the rest of the world. Because most people still don't know the grim realities of the natives, what they face living on these reservations currently. So what it is to be a modern day Native American in these communities. And so for me, I learned so much. I say that my naivety prior to arriving onto the reservations, which I was invited to come and do so by Carol Einrope Herrera, who's the elder in the film. When we first spoke, I said, I have to be honest, I don't know. I started to do some research, and there is a lot of press around it. If you go online and you go down the rabbit hole, you can find things. However, it isn't something you see on a daily basis. And so, yet again, in my learning, in educating myself, I was reminded that I was not taught any of this at school. And I was brought up in a boarding school in England, and we think about the British, invasion and the European invasion, the Italians and the Spanish coming to the Americas and creating what we now know as America. None of that was spoken about in my curriculum, let alone, of course, what's happening in the U.S. curriculum. The Native kids are being taught the federal government's curriculum, which doesn't speak to the truth as to what really went down with the Native peoples and the genocide of the peoples. So it was very new to me. But really, in if you wanted to search, there is information. However, there is no data. That really most communities have no data as to, like you speak of, the missing and murdered Indigenous women's tallying of those numbers. Historically, we know that the Native communities have been made vulnerable and, in most parts, invisible. And so, a lot of places don't collect the Native American data, which puts them at risk for all of these things. And then, of course, now we know with the COVID that has hit the Navajo reservation very, very hard. And just speaking, like you said, as to the stories being more than just the Lakota people, when I would drive back from South Dakota, I would drive back from the reservation to California. It was a 2-day road trip. We'd stop through some of the other reservations, and I remember we were in Gallup, and I was speaking to one of the ladies working in one of the Native stores, and their artwork and their beadwork and what they still do creatively is just so beautiful and so powerful. So I was looking at some of the Navajo pieces, and the woman behind the desk said, what are you doing here? And I said, we're shooting this film. It's about the women, and we want to really bring an awareness to the voices of the Native women. And she said, it's not just happening there. And then she said, proceeds to tell me a horrific story. And she said, it's everywhere on these reservations. People don't talk about it. And it took me months to really sit with what I'd learned and all these hours and hours of story that I'd gathered and try and make sense of it, because it's so big. It's so big.
And the drug part, the meth and the alcohol, that is something that they, Native Americans weren't doing that. Alcohol, you bring that up, and how they were saying how that was not here when, Christopher Columbus came over, and I think you had a stat of 90% of the Native American population has gone, since Christopher, when he got here it is. And it wasn't just him, right? That was the beginning. But the alcohol and drugs, we were talking about this with friends last night. We drove through Shiprock late at night, early in the morning. It was just one of, the crazy road trips we all do, right? When you're driving around these areas. And we got into Gallup, and I mean, not into Gallup, it was in Shiprock on our way to Gallup. And we went to the stop sign, and there were some young teenagers on the median, and they pushed another one, like as though they were pushing it into the car, the person into the car. And then as we got onto 491, it happened again. They were almost like pushing each other into the car as a dare, a moving vehicle. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's going to be the drugs. And I've heard that it is happening in some other areas too. And I don't know if you saw any of that, but it's this weird thing. I don't know. I've never taken meth. I don't know if that's what happens, but there's these dares. And but that's that kind of thing where teenagers do that. I know there's all kinds of things they've done with like choking themselves and all of that. But
I know. It's sad to say that, a lot of people have said to me, oh, but drugs are everywhere. And I'm like, okay, yeah, we can speak to that. We can speak to there are various communities, most of which don't have money. So, of course, what do they want to do is they want to escape. And so, yes, meth is a big problem all around the U.S. However, like you spoke of earlier, the natives never had that in their way of being. They were ones with the earth. Their medicine was the earth. And so now when you're looking at numbers of around 70% of the youth on the Pine Ridge Reservation alone are meth addicts, and you're looking at these young women who are being given the drug to then have a debt to whomever it is that they're getting this drug from, and then they're being sex trafficked, and nobody's really talking about it, and there isn't any proper support, like community support. They do have various people trying to support the drug, the issue with the drugs to get them rehabilitation. However, it's a 3-hour drive north of the reservation to be able to be in a rehabilitation center. So, the health system is desperately underfunded. And so as much as the Native peoples and the communities are resilient, they're fighting a spirit. And one of the wonderful women who's in the film, Jules Richardson, who's Mothers Against Meth Alliance, she runs out of her tiny little home in Pine Ridge an awareness program and trying to support the young children. And she's picking up 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, little kids walking on the streets in the middle of the night because their parents are high. And she has no funding because she says even when that started about 5 years ago, when the meth came in onto the reservation, the tribal government knew nothing about it nor knew how to support it. So she took it into her own hands to try and support her community. And I just spoke with her this morning, and she thinks she has COVID. She's been exposed to it, and she's it's just a mess. And I mean, she cried this morning on the phone to me, and she said to the people that basically are trying to help, it's the community health representatives of the tribal government, and they're you have to call in and say, I think I'm sick. They check back to see how sick you are, and if you are sick enough, they may send someone out to test you. However, they're not testing everybody because, yet again, they don't have the funding nor enough tests to protect these people.
Wow. And so that, you think about, the Navajo Nation going through the same kind of thing as well. So here's a growing issue. And at the same time, when you say about, they're not having help in regards to rehabilitation, it's also when I look at the education side of things that it didn't seem like it seems like it's almost like an uphill battle, but a worthwhile battle to even teach the youth of their traditions, who they are, learn the language, because that's one thing we've found that a lot of the different tribes are actually trying to document their language because their language is slowly disappearing, and even working together between tribes to document it.
Yeah, that's a really big thing for the youth. I think 10 years ago, 20,000 people spoke the language, and now, as of last year, there's 2,000 people that speak the language. So the thing that I heard prior to going, when speaking to the language and their ceremony and their medicine, right, these people who are so rich in their culture, that the language holds a resonance that is a medicine, that the actual speaking of their language actually has a healing component to it. and they are people of their word. So every time they would open their mouths, what they said was truth. And so, of course, they speak of the governments promising them many things with all of the treaties. And, of course, over the years, they've just broken all the treaties. It's such a hard thing to witness when you know these people really come from a very connected to the earth and connected to truth, connected to Mother Earth in a way that would hold her in balance through their ceremony. And that yet it was illegal for them to actually practice their ceremony until 1978. So in my lifetime, to be who they truly are. And so now there is the continuum of the genocide through putting them in prison, through, of course, the drug issues, through the alcoholism, and then the lack of funding. You know, they don't even have a transport system on the reservation. And we're looking at 3,500 square miles with dotted tin cans. You know, they live in these trailers that most don't have electricity, most don't have running water, and most don't have a car. So how do they even get to a treatment center? They have to, you know, hope that a relative will come pick them up, and then it's the gas money because they're driving for an hour and a half just to get across the reservation to go to the hospital. So the whole community is really not taken care of in any way whatsoever. And, of course, with what's going on, you know, the government is speaking, the U.S. government is speaking to getting everything back on track. And nobody's really speaking to how they're supporting these types of communities. And, of course, it's bringing up all that ancient trauma of having been the last ones to be cared for. So they're going through that. And someone posted a cartoon of one of the, you know, because right now all the reservations have basically put their own stopping on traffic from coming in so they can protect their people. And the federal government is saying put down the boundary, you've got to let people come through. And there's a cartoon of you know, a U.S. governor handing out blankets at the border.
Oh my gosh!
You know, the joke on, you know, we're going to give you our disease, because that's of course how they managed to spread a lot of the chickenpox and the various diseases back in the day, which killed all these native peoples because they had no resilience, because they didn't know that. They were connected in a very different way. So it's history repeating itself in many ways for a lot of these peoples. And, you know, rightly so, they're trying to protect themselves.
And the cycle, too, in regards to, you know, the abuse, you know, the abuse women are going through. There was a story in there where, you know, the young girl running through the snow to get help for her mom, where the dad, you know, was abusing, you know, the mom, and then went after the sons, and then she went running off and ended up with her feet amputated. I mean, and to get help, running for help. And, you know, when you think about how vast the reservation is, like you were saying, you know, that 3,000 square miles, that fear and that is going to, that cycle keeps going, you know. It's hard to forget those kinds of things. It just keeps turning the trauma from, you know, ancient times to continuing forward, no matter whether it's physical abuse from a loved one or abuse through the government or any of it, or a pandemic. It just seems that that's part of it. It's the same kind of negative cycle that's hitting. And yet at the same time, we look at how, you know, white folks are here going, hey, you know, we all want to be Indian and have that. You know, there's this weird thing, too. It's cool to be Indian. And you know what I'm talking about? It's like, you know.
It's, you know, we speak of that a lot. Actually, I was speaking with Sunrose Ironshell, who's one of the school teachers in the film Women of the White Buffalo, who is so incredibly smart and so informative in the film. She's just brilliant, and she has her sense of humor. And the natives have this beautiful sense of humor. You know, they are so resilient, and they are so passionate about who they really are. And I think the big piece with the film to me was, you know, people are like, why did you make this film? And I said, because I want people to be self-aware. Like, even if by watching this film, they have a better understanding of the native peoples and their history, they can join that conversation. The other piece is their own self-awareness and their relationship to the earth, because these peoples have continued to connect to the earth. They still have their ceremony. They have their sun dances. And this is what Sunrose was sharing with me, is that the DNA of the native peoples has a much deeper connection to Mother Earth. They're far more sensitive. unlike a lot of other cultures, people, the sort of, I will say the white man, as he came over, we're all indigenous. There's no separateness from any of us.
Right.
However, the bigger piece is the remembering of her. And I do believe that when you watch the film, the thing that they keep speaking to is remember who you are. And that's what my prayer is by the film. It's not this big piece of hope of, do this and this will happen. There's no magic button. It's the self-awareness, I think, of the totality of humanity. And I believe that the burden on the Native peoples is much greater because they're seeing how humanity have totally disconnected themselves from the truth of who we really are. And I know they hold a greater responsibility to wake those people up too. And I really pray that the film will gift the people, because there's many that still don't know, about the realities on these reservations, and just the understanding of indigenous cultures, period. That it would be so wonderful if the little thing that I can bring into the world with this film are these magnificent voices of these 8 women who hold such tremendous information, and that we can wake up and start looking at our own footprint.
Well, it's very easy and convenient to believe the story of when we subjugated other peoples, that we were doing it for their own good. We were doing it to civilize them. We were doing it to educate. We were doing it to bring them into religions. And so this was all done for their own good, except for the fact when you really delve into it, somehow their land disappeared with it.
That's right. And their culture and their language, all of that, for sure. I mean, if you really think about it, and their cutting of their hair. I mean, it's heartbreaking. It's having the boarding school system set up so that, like you said, they could be trained out of their way. To be segregated from their truth, not to speak their language. And yes, it was a religious act, but it was bigger than that. It was, I think the fear, right, of the unknown. So you have all these European settlers showing up, and they would witness these ceremonies that these natives would show of who they are, and in the fear of the unknown, they wanted to kill it because they didn't feel that they had a power over them if these people still maintained their practice on a regular basis or a daily basis.
You see a snake and the immediate reaction is kill it, right? And you don't think about why that snake is there, how the snake helps the soil through aeration tunnels, and how that snake may kill another snake like a rattler. It's so funny because even just that, I'll post a photo of a snake and everybody kill it. I'm like, what do you mean just kill it? But that's that immediate fear. There's people like if they see a snake or rattlesnake, they'll hit it with their car, and I'm like, this is a living being. And I've actually been on that fear side and done stuff to understand and know exactly how far you'll go on that. And there's fear when you wait to be attacked or something. I don't know.
That's right.
But it's a very interesting thing because I think we're still in that. Even the way government, I'm not going to get in politics, but
sure.
No, but we're still being taunted and controlled through fear. I feel like I'm talking globally because again, we're all connected, and I think that's one of the messages that were very, very strong from your documentary is that we are all connected. If the Lakota women are not healthy and happy, neither are we really.
That's right.
We're not.
That's right.
And
that's right.
It's a strong message for the Me Too movement too. I mean, look how far we've come so far ahead as women, but we're still so far behind.
That's right. I mean, to speak to the idea of us all being connected to the winged ones, to the four-legged ones, to the creepy crawlers, and to one another, of course. It's like, this is so interesting. Someone mentioned it the other day. They said, it's so interesting. We're all being put into quarantine, and yet all the parks are closed. The national forests, the national parks are also closed. And so we're not allowed into nature, right? The most healing thing we have on this planet is her. Yet Walmart is open. So you can still go buy more of your crap, which you probably don't even really need. And we're all panicking about toilet paper. And it's like, well, why are we not allowed into nature? Why are we not allowed to be around the very essence of who we really are, which is the connection to her?
And you said Walmart. We were talking about this exact thing last night. Here.
Sorry, I don't want to name drop anywhere, but
I'm go for it, man. Go for it. But the Walmart thing, there's like, how come they get to be open, but the small stores, mom and pop stores, are not allowed to be?
They're all closed. Yeah, and now we're speaking to 33 million people being unemployed, and of course, going back to it, it's like our focus is on the economy, and then they've just given, again, I don't want to name names or do data or speak to big numbers because I'll probably get it wrong, but just the things that I'm reading, it's like $10 million here and $20 million there, and let's, bail these people out. And then I speak to my relatives on the reservations, and they can't even get food. It doesn't make sense to me. So if these are our first people, if these are the people that brought, the peoples that showed up to land on this great continent, and these people showed them how to survive. And yes, there is historical fighting between the nations, and yes, we're not all perfect. I understand that the natives weren't all sitting there, all peace and love. They were in survival mode amongst one another. Yet their basis of understanding was that Mother Earth was to be treated with the utmost respect, and they never hunted more than they needed. And if we had continued with that sovereignty, right, that sovereignty to the land and living off the land, the great American way, we wouldn't be in the trouble that we're in right now. And we wouldn't be running into, the Walmarts or the Whole Foods or wherever it is that people go and buy their foods, any different, place to be able to purchase all you need to eat, and all the shelves are empty because everybody's so panicked. And so they're so selfish in their way of some of the videos that I saw of people fighting over things. It's like, and they've got cups filled with stuff, and somebody's like, can I just have one of those? Like, just that mentality. It's all about me, I, when the natives were all about the family, the tribe, the greater collective. And so at the end of the film, I speak to Nancy. I believe you saw it. Was the great prophecy by Sitting Bull was sitting down, smoking the peace pipe with Crazy Horse, and Crazy Horse was said to have spoken the words that one day there will be a time when there is great suffering on this planet, and it'll be the white man that'll come to the red man and say, "Show us, remind us." Because they will have forgotten. And somebody else posted something the other day, and I put it up on my Facebook, and I remember seeing this. It's another elder. He's a wise man, elder, native man, that speaks to the prophecies that America, by the natives, the natives would see America come and go because we will have forgotten our way. And I believe that time is now. Like this is just the beginning of so much. And all I can say is when I speak to my relatives, they stand in awe, and they cannot believe that they are still the last to be recognized. They're still the last to be cared about, and they're still the last to be honored because America has not made their peace with them and apologized and really recognized what they've done to them.
Including like the Dakota's Access Pipeline. I'm still going on that, and it was interesting because one of the, we were talking about this too the other day, that at the end of the day, though, look at the biggest grouping of indigenous people from around the world came together over that. And that really showed something. And that's why I say this is so global. It's American, but it's global. And at the same time, here we are threatening Mother Earth and water. And here, and it's happening all the time. I mean, like Chaco up, Chaco, we're going to frack that area, and it's like a ceremonial site. It's like this is important history, and it's connected to all of us and to nature. And then, it's fine, and now it's back on again. And it seems like they're targeting areas that should be left alone, and it's a continual battle, and it is like the pushing out. But I also think it's the pushing out of we are connected. Let me just put it at that, because
it's true. It's true. It's definitely going to have an effect.
Yeah, we really have to look at why. It's the continuation of drilling for gas and oil And fracking, when we know how bad it is, we know it's ruining the land, we know it's ruining our waterways, which, hello, people, that's what you drink on a daily basis. It's going to kill you at some point. Why we don't stop it, and we don't even need it. We have gas and oil reserves in this country. We have them around the world. We really don't need it. So then the excuse becomes jobs. Well, then look at the jobs. Percent of the people working are on minimum wage, and the top 5-6% are making all the money. So that's really, until we get fair with it, it should stop.
Yeah, I agree that definitely balance. Balance is such a big word at the moment. I just keep hearing Mother Earth, wants to be back in balance. And she is so forgiving. And she is here to really provide the medicine to heal all of us if we would just stop and listen. And I'm speaking to Sunrose, and it's in the film, we speak about the water, being sacred. Water is life. And she speaks of it being illegal to have your own well on the reservation.
I know.
And their electricity bills are 3 times as high as the normal bill because of the way they have to run the lines or whatever it may be.
So disgusting.
So we know. She said, she says it in the film. She goes, who is trying to keep us from thriving? Who is it in power trying to continue the suppression of our people? Who is it in power that doesn't care about us? Like, it doesn't even make sense. She goes, half of this doesn't even make sense to me. Like, she can't even wrap her head around it. Like, why? And it's, of course, it goes back to money. And money equals power. And so until that part of humanity's awakening shifts, where we cannot eat our money, and when all the land is dying and all the animals are gone, and we're talking about hundreds of species of animals are going at rates that are unfathomable. I think a third of our bird population has died. So when is the wake up? When we realize we have nothing left? I mean, when is the wake up? So there's a lot. And someone said to me the other day, they saw the film, they were so deeply moved, they were in tears, and they're like, how can I help? How can we help?
Yeah, exactly.
And I said, we need to wake up. If you can watch this film and it ignites a part of you that goes, who is my local tribe? What land am I sitting on? This Turtle Island, who is my native tribe near me that needs my support? What does that look like? Is it my time? Is it just joining the conversation? Is it a financial thing? Like, it doesn't always have to be money. Awareness is so big. To come in and help the children, to come in and support the communities, and not separate yourself from them over there, those native people, those indigenous peoples. Because as far as I'm concerned, we continue to kill the indigenous spirit. And Mother Earth is the only thing really, to me, that needs to be loved. And as we continue to stop that loving communication with the indigenous peoples, they hold the wisdom of Mother Earth. So we're killing ourselves. Humanity will not survive.
I want to tell everybody again to go to your
wake up.
I think it absolutely is, and I want people to go to your website, womenofthewhitebuffalo.com, and there's a good story about the whole name. You've got to watch the documentary. So, the fundraiser, tell everybody how that works.
Yeah, basically, I did something on Facebook, and, in my naivety, I decided that I'm going to basically get this out myself. I'm going to self-distribute the film, get it up on the website, so to have it available on womenofthewhitebuffalo.com. And then suddenly I realized how expensive it was. And I have a beautiful team of people, and they're just like, this is, again, the irony. I have a lot of vintage film in the film, speaking to how it was in the boarding schools and what it was like as a young native back in the day. And they're owned by a lot of people who want to charge me $4,000 for 30 seconds of usage, and photographs that I'm using in the film to document the truth of what's happening can be from anything from $100 to $600 for the usage of one photo. So in doing the maths, I think the $10,000 that I was asking for was way under the realities of my needs. And I'm just praying that I will get a couple of donors that want to privately donate, and it will be a tax write-off, tax-free donation through the foundation, which is coachtoedify.org. They are basically helping with all the funding, because the entire film was made with donations. I don't owe anybody anything. Nobody invested in the natives. This is a pure love that I'm so passionate about. And having spent so much time with these women, it is only right that they are heard. So at the moment, if there's anyone that wants to donate and they, feel it in their sort of heart to really right the wrongs that so many of these big companies have done to these peoples, and we can get this message out so people can really hear their stories, you can donate through the website. There is a PayPal button, and or you can email me directly. Again, you can email through the website, and we can work out how that will be a tax-deductible donation to help me get this film out, hopefully in the next couple of months. Will be the idea.
Right on, and big toast to all who do and have supported this. So,
yes.
womenofthewhitebuffalo.com. So everyone go there, and we're going to play your theme song, which was it's written by your dad, right, John Anderson?
Yeah, he co-wrote it with Jenny Musket, who did the entire score of the film. Absolutely beautifully done. And then my dad, who has been working with Indigenous stories and has been writing music with the Indigenous peoples, with Native American people for 30, 40 years even. So when I called him, I said, Dad, could you do a song? He said, I already have it. He was so thrilled, and he's been following the journey. He's watched the film in its many incarnations, and every time he said he's cried. And he said it is time that these people walk amongst us and that we see who they really are.
Oh, I love that. And before you go, it is Champagne Sundays, and this has got nothing to do. It's not about alcohol. It could be tea, water. It just is really about looking at there are all these hardships, what we've talked about, and yet through hardships also there's always beauty somewhere. There's always something positive. So what would you like to toast to today? What are you feeling grateful and positive for?
Gosh, I have to say, firstly, thank you to you both. So I toast you both for giving my voice a platform and the voices of all these women a platform. And I want to toast all the women that showed up and wanted to speak and were brave enough to share their stories. I'm deeply indebted to them, because to stand up and speak your truth in a time like this, when you've had years and years of being told to not speak, is a very powerful testament to the time that we're in. So I toast these women. They're quite fantastic, and it's an important time to hear their voices. So
they're powerful. I know. I'm like, oh my gosh, you be safe. They're talking. I'm like, but they're standing strong. So I toast alongside with you. So thank you so much for doing the documentary, your art, and for the integrity that you have and have for the people too. And Mother Nature, she rocks.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
thank
love
you.
Mother
And
Nature.
the song you're going to play is with Delacina Chief Eagle, singing with my father. And Delacina is also in the film, one of the powerful women that speak to the stories. So I'm just so honored to have you play it for the first time. This is the first time anyone's going to hear it out in the world. So thank you.
Thank you. We're honored. You take care and be well as you go through the next phase of this journey of getting it out there. Here it is.
Thank
Women
you, ladies.
of the White Buffalo.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Be the sun, be the sky, be the river. Hey.